we're seeing businesses recognize that this is more than a trend, but rather technology that has the potential to have lasting value, and B, that lasting value comes not from creating something you can sell quickly and make a profit on, but rather by creating use cases that deliver value and deliver two-way value, like inequitable value exchange. That's where I see a lot of effort being put. I see a lot of interesting businesses starting to think about how brands can use these. I see a lot of businesses that are honestly building in this space and building out use cases that could be done just as easily without Web3. So
going on with here another conversation of Let's Talk Tourism, and now I have the pleasure of talking with Justin Peyton. He is a person who's very focused on Web3 and all the aspects that tourism can participate as well in this industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about his background, how he got into this industry, what he notices of this industry now of tourism, and also how it can be implemented with marketing, Web3, and tourism all in one. So Justin, thank you for your time and accepting this on a short notice. And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you, man.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where are you from, and how is it that you got into this aspect of Web3 and parts of tourism as well?
Well, so I wouldn't describe myself as into tourism, but I'll have an opinion on it. But I am from the United States. I have spent my life moving east. So from the West Coast to the Midwest to the East Coast to the UK to the Middle East, and now I live in Singapore. So I've not got much further to go. I've pretty much hit the edge of how far I can go in moving east. But I have always surrounded myself and been surrounded by, through circumstance, technology and technology innovators, like always. And I will admit that I got into the Web3 side of things. You know, I would say earlier than most, but later than some. And it feels late to me, although we're still early. So that's that. But realistically, I'd say about a year ago, all of a sudden, a lot of brands started to take interest, and I've spent most of my career focused on helping brands to solve big problems and to look at how technology can help them solve problems. And when they started to ask questions about this space, it was a space that I was already involved in. It was a space that I was already quite passionate about, and it was a space where I felt that a lot of the interesting use cases for the technology weren't being talked about. So at that point in time, I started to talk more, not about where I saw token prices, but where I saw interesting use cases for these technologies and how they could be applied to brands and to people in order to more equitably distribute value.
Yes, it changed. It changed a lot of industries, and you mentioned fewer sooner than most, later than some. What year? Where did you start diving?
Somewhere around 2017.
Okay,
well, so it depends. I mean, it depends on how we talk about things, right? So if we talk about metaverse and virtual reality and that side of things, like the first time I wore and put on a VR headset was decades ago, right? When the tech was very, very primitive. But the honest truth is that while the tech's advanced quite a bit, you know, a lot of the thinking was actually quite advanced at that time already. So in that regard, you know, on the VR, AR, that side of things, I've been thinking about it for a long time. On the Web3 side of things, I started looking at crypto in 2017, and then started thinking about use cases for brands much later, as I started to think more about smart contracts rather than just asset prices.
Just yeah, just like gold instead of other things that are new, like DM, how do you say it? Those decentralized apps, all of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's so much more. And I wanted to ask, what do you see currently that is really catching your eye regarding this market, like Web3 kind of startups or initiatives? Do you see any of those?
I mean, listen, there's too much to really mention it. Only one thing, but
Okay.
to kind of summarize that, what I think is really exciting at this point is the
Uh,
fact that we're seeing businesses recognize that this is a more than a trend, but rather technology that has the potential to have lasting value, and B, that lasting value comes not from creating something you can sell quickly and make a profit on, but rather by creating use cases that deliver value and deliver two-way value, like inequitable value exchange.
yeah.
That's where I see a lot of effort being put. I see a lot of interesting businesses starting to think about how brands can use these. I see a lot of businesses that are honestly building in this space and building out use cases that could be done just as easily without Web3. Um,
I
so
see.
so you know, what gets me excited are the ones that come up with something where they're doing something that would never be able to be done without this kind of tech. That's where I get excited. But it's the usefulness and the utility
Exactly.
that I'm interested in.
Mhm. Yeah, and especially now that people are starting to get the basics, just like a wallet and then how to set it up, how to have your private key stored, and then if you want a hard wallet, things of that nature that we're just getting into. And hopefully, like you said, technology will kind of evolve, like what are we doing right now? That this kind of communication would have been very difficult 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So that's very innovative. What do you think that Web3 will impact the most regarding outside of a finance? Because you mentioned that it's not only that, but like things of like gaming or things of that nature that are really
Well, I think you're already seeing massive adoption in areas like gaming. There's a
mm,
lot of people who are saying, and a lot of gamers I know who aren't thrilled by the technology. They just want games to be fun.
yeah,
They don't need play to earn. They don't need anything like that. They just want games to be fun. I'm of the opinion that we'll probably see games that are fun and leverage uh, blockchain technologies to create portability of assets or interoperability of assets, etc. But
mhm.
but I'm not necessarily the target audience there. I'm not the hardcore gamer. I spend a lot of time talking to them at this point,
I
but
see.
that's that. But I think it's, you know, trying to sit there and say what industries are going to be most affected. It's easy to say gaming, fashion, beauty. These are
Mhm.
industries that are already adopting things quickly. But but I think that we're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of thinking about the use cases that are going to be applied. And we're going to see a lot of people come up with really interesting use cases over the next coming years.
Definitely, that is definitely, and also I think that possibly just like the adoption of something like a actual physical thing that will make us use that kind of technology more mainstream. Like, for example, like us, we have our phones, but if we can have it like a lens or something all the time, then the utility of certain things might favor
Still
us.
a ways away from that, but yes.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I get you, and we're too far in. And I was saying, like I mentioned before we were talking about the certain utilities you mentioned about NFTs, and also like certain brands are using like fancy watches to have them. You can either have the token or the physical thing, but not one or the other. So that kind of aspect. Since we're talking about tourism, I wanted to talk to you about what are your insights. You say it's also not your main industry, but maybe you can give some observations regarding how NFTs could be applied for hotels, for timeshares, for
I,
experiences.
I
Just
think that you're going to see, I think you're going to see a few things happen personally. I think that when you look at loyalty programs overall, right, the travel industry have some of the biggest. whether they be hotel, whether they be airline. They have, and when you look at some of the challenges that exist there, I think there are a number of them that can be addressed using some of these technologies, and those things really involve the ability to actually give people rewards for their loyalty at a level that is commensurate with them, right? There are a lot of people who feel like they can earn miles, they can earn points, but never enough to get something that's interesting. They never reach that next tier, and people reach a kind of a point of tier fatigue or points fatigue or whatever it happens to be. And I think there's an interesting way of creating models that start to remove some of those fatigue points by just getting rid of tiers altogether and looking at how through NFTs you can start to just classify the actions that people take, the interests that people have, and start to look at a different structure. I don't think anybody's really done that yet, but I think there's an interesting model that's out there. I also look at the interoperability of those programs, and you look at kind of the shared nature of some of the airline programs where, you know, points on Star Alliance can be used with other airlines. They start to share these things, and I think that that's a really interesting model to begin with, but it requires those large brands to have a very firm agreement as to what things actually are.
Yeah.
And the question that I would ask, and I don't know the answer to this, but the question I would ask is, what's the potential for interoperability with a broader set of businesses as you start to look at these types of loyalty programs? I think there's a lot that you can actually do there. I could actually probably talk about it ad nauseum, but I think that's an interesting area to play.
Yeah, definitely. Like how yeah, because I've been thinking, I'm from Nayarit, Mexico. So there's like there's like a potential to connect certain types of businesses and then join like NFT experience. Like where you have a token for this, will give you experiences for a few days or whatever the tier is. But like you said, having an agreement with all of those people to actually make it happen, that's the fun part, huh? That's the challenging thing.
Well, we'll see.
Yes. I wanted to ask for that viewer that is watching, because I know I appreciate your time, Justin, for this. What do you think that a person that is very starting to the Web3, the NFT space, all that things that they want to get prepared? Do you have any recommendations or one certain concepts they have to have understood in order to be prepared for it? Yeah, either real estate or whatever industry they're at, they can apply that same technology? Because I know it's a big loaded question, but
I don't think I have one recommendation at all. What I would say is a few things. One is get involved, talk to people, read, find a few people who you trust, follow them. I would say that there's a lot of people who will tell you to put a lot of risk capital behind things, and you've got to start by buying things, and I think that you've got to recognize that that's a risk, and so I wouldn't recommend it, right? But you should find ways to involve yourself and talk to people, etc. I think anytime you don't know about something and people are all trying to tell you that that this is going to change a lot of things and this is what the future is, etc., I'd say approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism. Ask people the hard questions, ask people skeptical questions, and let people explain to you why they think this is going to change things. Sometimes some of the issues you'll believe, some of it you won't, and that's a good thing, right? Because not everything that people are saying are valid use cases. Not everything people are trying to do needs Web3. Some of the things that you're seeing can be done otherwise. So it's if you're brand new, talk to people, read, get into the subject, but also challenge it with a healthy dose of skepticism, because the only way you're really going to learn is if you ask critical questions, not just if you believe everything.
Exactly. You always have to question, even though it's very trendy, like you said, especially in these 2 years. We get hyped up and just invest what we don't have, and then you don't understand it, and then it becomes a downfall. Like it always
Be
happens.
very careful about that. Like I would never want to give someone investment advice, but I would want to recommend healthy doses of caution in everything that you do.
Exactly. So definitely, if you guys have the time to investigate, get knowledge into this, because in like 5 to 10 years, it could possibly become the current thing. So thank you, Justin, again for your time. If people wanted to get in touch with you, either for your businesses, or how can they contact you in case they wanted to talk to you, or things of that nature?
The best way to find me is either on LinkedIn, or I write a newsletter called Brand Next, and you can look for the newsletter that I write. It's not published with any specific frequency. I'm trying to do it every 2 weeks, but hey, that's that.
That's a challenge. All right, perfect. I'll try to add the text close to you. So if you want to get in touch with Justin about more Web3 information, and he's definitely help you out. So hopefully you have a good time. Thank you, Justin, again, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.